Welcome back to the Eric Krown Crypto channel, wishing you a happy early start to this nice Wednesday morning as we get ready for a nice FOMC day. No, not FOMC, but CPI, of which I need to check in on the events tab over here on the Krown Chain application. And yes, indeed, set a nice alert for that because that likely to produce some nice market volatility in the more immediate term, which is very likely going to line up with the analysis of the day. Anyways, other than that, as we get into this one, I want to really be focusing on the relationship between the short-term timeframes and the higher term timeframes today, because there is a major interplay between them that is very likely going to be clarified probably around today's event, to be quite honest with you, of which going to be a fun one, I suspect. Other than that, I should also let you know that, of course, you can still get the Jewel Light for free for the first 30 days if you follow the directions in the description below. And then also, yes, the Jewel Light will actually be changing as far as its service goes on April 17th, that is, April 17th. So I just want to make sure that anyone who already has it, nothing will change for you. Everything's all good. You will not, your price will not change. Nothing will happen. You don't need to do anything. But after the 17th, the price will change. It'll be slightly higher. All right, sweet. So let's just jump right into it. First things first, I want to follow up on this chart. This is a chart that we were looking at, I believe, over the weekend, looking at the weekly 9 and 55 exponential moving average cross, which is the 9 represented by the cyan moving average right here and the green 55. And over the full history of Bitcoin, we've seen these two moving averages on the weekly cross a few times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not counting the one that just happened this past Sunday, this most recent Sunday, actually. So it's, it's actually still quite new. But ultimately, anytime that we have seen it cross, Bitcoin has typically followed up with a pretty quick, momentous move to the upside, followed by a pretty nasty pullback crash, whatever the fuck you want to call it after that, typically very, 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 very fast. So in this case, I do want to highlight that even the worst one, least impressive iteration of this particular setup, which we did see back on over here in actually 2020, right before the old Rona dump, there was still a pretty nice move from actual cross given to the next high, in this case, just under about 30% at about 28.5%. All of the other ones were obviously significantly more than that. But again, just like you see on this one over here, relatively soon after that cross, there was a pretty nasty correction at minimum down to the cyan moving average. In fact, you see that correction to the cyan moving average each and every time before Bitcoin does continue onwards and upwards. And of course, in this one time over here, you do see that it doesn't just retest it, it absolutely fucking shatters it with the old Dumpola party. Anyways, going back into our current iteration of this, you can see that, yes, again, that did happen officially as of this past Sunday. And more importantly, this does likely set in the bias for continuation to the upside before the next correction. And again, I want to be very adamantly clear about this. For months now, we've really been focusing on the upside on this channel. I do think that relatively soonish, probably around May, if I had to guess, there's gonna be a nasty correction. And when I say nasty correction, I mean, somewhere between like 20 to 30% done in a relatively short amount of time. We'll go over these statistics with that in another video, not for this video, but in the very, very near term, yeah, I do still expect things to kind of continue onwards and upwards here. Now, threading this into the lower term timeframes, I do want to start off this the lower term timeframe analysis on the 3-hour timeframe, looking at the HPDR ranges right here, of which the median is coming in right around where? 29.7, and the top side of the current channel coming in around about 30,400. My speech today not gonna be too good, man. My sleep definitely not fucking good. Holy shit, man. What the hell? I was reading the stats on my Whoop band. Not good HRV today. Very not good. Don't know why that is, but you know what? Doesn't matter. Anyways, got it. It's gonna be a long day to get through, man. And also woman. And well, everything else in between, and even outside of that too. Anyways, in this case, yeah, so that would imply that a closure below about 29,700, and then yes, I guess I would be looking for a deeper correction short term, somewhere around about 29,200 to 29,300 region, and come back to it after that. Long term, however, or relative to the higher term timeframes, I still remain with bullishness overall, looking for this move to continue at least a little bit higher as long as Bitcoin is above a very specific pivot, and we'll go over why this is in a bit. But just the number itself right now is $29,000. That is to say that as long as Bitcoin is closing medium and higher term timeframes above $29,000, direction still remains likely to the upside. Looking for this move somewhere maybe around like 33,000 bucks. Anyways, and of course, if we do see a closure above about 30,400, even on a lower term time frame like this, then yes, I'd very likely be looking for that next move up into the deeper 31s, maybe even somewhere around 32. Anyways, we can go and reference stochastic momentum, starting off with the 6-hour time frame right here. We can see that short term, likely a little bit correction. So today, probably going to be sideways, especially at least until the CPI, or yeah, is it CPI or is it FOMC? I just completely goofed this one up. Yeah, it's CPI. All right, yeah, even better. So going back into a year, probably going to trade sideways into that as usual. 6-hour time frame current pivot is 30,300. 4-hour time frame current pivot is 30,250. Again, coming in from the critical zone right here. An hourly time frame is probably also down. Indeed, it is down below 30,200. So we see all lower term time frames kind of in concert with each other, suggesting that Bitcoin probably plays sideways and maybe a little bit down in the short term. But again, first things first. The big area for the short term would be about 29,700. If that does give way, that's at the point where I would be looking for a move, a few $100 lower, maybe like 29,350 to 29,200 or so. But again, as long as Bitcoin is closing above 29,000 bucks, I would expect that to put in a higher low and try higher maybe later this week or into next week. Anyways, moving on and into maybe the last thing of the day, of which I want to always follow up on this particular setup right here because it is still active and available, and we've been covering it hopefully in advance enough so that people can be aware of these sort of things. I think we called it out back on March 31st, actually, fired off officially a few days ago. But in this case, there's another daily volatility versus stochastic momentum signature here, of which anytime that we have seen volatility represented by this indicator, the BBWP indicator, get down to extreme lows, what are defined as below 10 percentile or more, the expansion phase that naturally follows from those extreme lows has led to an average move of about 20% over the course of about 10 days, on the upper end about 14 days. Now, the direction of these stochastic oscillators had a high correlation to the direction of price action following expansion. And in this case, we can see that the daily stochastic oscillator is still pointed to the upside and will be remaining with upside as long as Bitcoin is above where? Guess where? Of course, 29,000 bucks. So again, as long as Bitcoin is above that pivot, today, short-term corrections still likely lead towards continuation plays. Now, when we go and reference the data, which has been back-tested for the past 5 years, for this particular setup, we've seen that 12 out of 14 went in the direction of the stochastic oscillator. Obviously, this one's going to, add another one onto that because, it's already been up like what? Close to like 10% since that particular one fired off, and again, the average amount of days that it's taken for these ones to play out is around about 10 days to 2 weeks, let's say. So from the time of it firing off. So right now we're on day number what? I think day number 3. Let me just double check. Okay. Yeah, we'd say right around here. Yep, day number 3. After today, it'll be number 4, obviously. And I can count, which is good. Sometimes not so well. Anyways, again, average return to just about 20% and standard deviation at 5.5 or so. So does give us a range between about 15% on the lower end to 25% on the upper end. So going back into it right here, we've already seen, like I said, about a 10% move. Let's just see. Okay, about 9% move or so. 15% again on the lower end puts you where? 32,500 or so. On the upper end, or at least closer to the average, where we'd be looking at, 20% puts Bitcoin at about 34. I do think that that's a pretty nice range for this current move to probably find some, some greater pullbacks into. Perhaps that's where the next 20 to 30% pullback comes from, as we see, as we do anticipate that correction down to the 9 exponential at some point. And just kind of playing around with numbers here, like what if Bitcoin, let's say, got to like 32? Well, what would a 20% crash look like? Actually, that'd bring it exactly down to where the 9 is right now. Now, of course, it completely depends upon where these things approach each other from. But assuming that Bitcoin doesn't close any dailies below 29,000 bucks in the short term here, well, still likely upside in the short term, relative short term, I should say. As far as timing goes, again, we do expect around like 10, maybe 14 days on the upper end for this particular one to play out. We're on day number 3. So day number 10 would put us where? That would put us like kind of like past the midpoint of April, around April 19, 20. 14 days obviously puts you, you know, a little bit further than that, about the 23rd or 24th. Of this month of April. But, you know, again, looking into the greater picture, which we won't fully get into on today's video, but May typically is, you know, there's that saying, sell in May and go away. And honestly, I typically hate these sort of things, but it's very difficult to ignore because it fucking works. It really does if you go ahead and backtest it. So we'll do that on a different video. Obviously, still May is like quite far away, so it's not super relevant for the time being. But, you know, rally in April, highs in, you know, late April, early May, pullback in May, and probably, you know, a good amount of the summer. And then we'll see where things come in around yet again. But for right now, again, as long as Bitcoin's above 29, still looking somewhere maybe around like 32, 34 region. And if things get really crazy, well, we'll come back to it after that. And at some point, not at some point, but soon enough, we'll be getting Mr. Fibbo Swanee back on the channel because he's a good friend. And also he was looking for this exact move well in advance, which was really impressive. So, yeah, looking forward to that. Anyways, other than that, I want to be wishing you the best as always. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully soon.